Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that the work relations in the province are at a historically low level. The union movement is ignored by this government despite the change in 3 different ministers in the last years. There is no improvement in the relationships. It is clear that decisions are based at the end of the day on the decisions made by the Premier. My question for the Minister of Education, Post-Secondary Education and Training and Labour is, what is he doing to solve the issue of the shortage in the workforce, and how can he help to improve the situation? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Well, thank you, through you, Mr. Speaker, to the member opposite. Post-education, training and labour actually are working with a number of different areas throughout the province to increase our workforce development. In particular with our community colleges, we'll say first of all, we're increasing the number of different trades that we recognize, the Red Seal, carpenters, the plumbers, electricians, all the tradespeople that this province needs to build the houses that we need so we can move this province forward economically. We need houses, and we can create jobs, and we can create employment, and also we can welcome students from all over the world. But it all begins with training of those students in our community colleges, in our post-secondary institution. Then we go into healthcare, and we're also working to increase the number of seats in our healthcare throughout the province to make sure the healthcare has the numbers of people that they need to keep our province safe. And we'll use Oltons College as an example. We just launched a program at Oltons College to develop nurses for the province, and in the very near future, within the next month or so, we'll be recognizing BOE.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Speaker, you can have as much field of studies as you want, you can increase the number of students as much as you want, but if you got no teacher to teach, you got no institution to offer. The situation regarding the labour relation is deeply concerning, as evidenced by the recent impasse between the CCNB and MBCC and their teachers, which halted at the Premier's desk. Given the critical labour shortage of our province is facing, what concrete step will the minister take to make sure that we still have seats in those class come September?
Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the member opposite, it's really obvious where the questions are coming from. The gallery, the audience that's here, they're playing to the crowd that's in the building. But that's fine, because it's important. The teachers at CCMB and MBCC in our province are extremely important to our pipeline to make sure that we have a continual flow of students and they're ready for the fall. But having said that, we are not, as a province, involved in the negotiations. It is between MBCC and the union representing the teachers. That's who's doing the negotiations. We as a government are obviously there when they reach a settlement and reach an agreement. They'll bring it forward to us to look at, and we look forward to that opportunity. But at the same time, it's not something that we get involved with. It's labour negotiations. It's not something that we're a part of as per se, because MBCC is run by a board of directors, as he well knows, because he was an EA in that department at one time. He knows how the system works, Mr. Speaker. So I don't understand why today, all of a sudden, this is a major concern, and he knows the answer to that.
The member for Member Cook Tantramar.
Mr. Speaker, today marks 18 months since the legislature directed the Law Amendments Committee to carry out a study on Bill 27, which would grant paid sick leave to all New Brunswick workers. It's been over a year since that committee requested that post-secondary education, training and labour undertake a review of the issue of paid sick days. It's been 6 months since the public consultations ended on December 11, 2023. Yet, we have heard radio silence from this government on the report or what they plan to do with it. Paid sick days have many benefits, including reducing absenteeism and facilitating recruitment, and by improving morale and fostering retention. Will the Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour bring a bill to give all New Brunswick workers access to paid sick leave this spring?
The Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through to the member opposite, thank you for the question, first of all. Government continues to examine the Employment Standards Act regarding legislative sick leave and recognizes the need to a balance between various industry perspectives. So we've been not only talking to the workers but also to the employers throughout this province to make sure we have a balance before we bring anything forward to have government approval. It's important, obviously, the workers and to recognize their need for sick leave and to have that protection that they deserve. But at the same time, Employers also need that. You do not need government legislation in the workplace all the time with workers or with employers, because it's important that they have the opportunity to be competitive amongst themselves. In other words, they want to keep workers and they want to retain workers, because good workers especially are in short supply, as we all know. So this is one area that employers have that they can be competitive on to make sure those workers have the safeguards that they have in case of sickness in the workplace.
Thank you, Minister. Member for Central.
Mr. Speaker, I believe every single worker deserves the right to have a paid sick day, to have multiple paid sick days. And this government clearly has no plans to implement paid sick leave for all New Brunswick workers this spring. A robust public consultation process was already undertaken on this bill. We had public committee hearings where Chambers of Commerce, the CFIB, the Federation of Labour, the Common Front for Social Justice, the Cancer Society, and others made their views known. CFIB presented findings stating that over half of their members favoured some form of paid sick days. The bill even included provisions to create a fund to help employers with the transition to providing additional sick leave. In Public Accounts Committee earlier this year, the Deputy Minister told me that the stakeholder consultation report is complete. So when will the Minister of Petal release it? And if he won't, what is he trying to hide?
Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the member opposite. Once again, here we go. We'll talk about it over and over and over, as we have on a number of occasions. Paid sick leave, obviously, like I was mentioned, is a very, very important element, I think, in the workforce development in our province and through our country. Right off the top, I'll tell you that there are only 3 provinces in Canada that actually have it. We're amongst the majority. There are 7 provinces that do not have this legislation right now. Only 3 do. And those 3 aren't even in agreement. All 3 of them have totally different agreements within their workforce and how they develop. I've met with the CFIB. I sat down with them, okay? We've discussed it. I've met with the Common Front. We've sat down and discussed it. And yes, they have feelings. They also have feelings for the employer as well. They realize that the employer has a role to play in this, and government doesn't always have to put rules in place. Employers will make the right decisions for the right time, for the right reasons, and get the right results. And that's what we're really concerned about here, having the right results for the people in the workforce to make sure that they are protected when the time comes. So I thank you.
The member for Memramcook Central.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, they are not achieving the right results and they are not protecting workers. And I will keep talking about it and I will keep raising this with the minister until there are paid sick days for all New Brunswick workers. It is unconscionable that there's only 5 unpaid sick days for New Brunswick workers if they get a diagnosis of cancer, for example. That should be extended, and there's more than 3 provinces that have extended that to many weeks, beyond 5 days. How can we have gone through a pandemic and not learned the value of sick days, of paid sick days, Mr. Speaker? I think this minister is trying to bury this report that recommends paid sick leave for New Brunswickers, and he says he wants to stand up for businesses. Well, the Greens are the only party calling for paid sick leave, and we're the only party calling for a lowering of the tax rate for small, locally owned businesses. I think there's a conflict of interest being the business and labour minister. Will the Premier explain how it's acceptable for the minister to represent both?
Minister of Post-Secondary Education, Training and Labour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Through you to the member opposite, one more time. Let's go through the list. There are 3 provinces in Canada that actually have legislative paid sick leave. Only 3, okay? Quebec, 2 days after 3 months of employment. British Columbia, 5 days after 90 days of employment. Prince Edward Island, 1 day after 5 years of employment. So as you can see, there's no consistency amongst those 3, and the other 7 provinces, again, have decided right now to keep examining, talking, working on solutions. So that's the moral of the story here. The number of businesses that are affected by this are considerable. The number of employees are even larger, and it's important to have a balance between both, as I mentioned earlier. Look, this is something that we continue to discuss with our counterparts right across the country, including at a recent meeting that I had with all the Labour Ministers of Canada as early as April the 5th. We had that discussion, all of our Labour Ministers of Canada, with the Federal Minister chairing the meeting. But right now, that is where it stands. It's under review. We're working.
Thank you, Minister.